ask questions, which is a little bit awkward, but she's done a real good job of writing out those questions, handing them to me. So I'll start off by just asking you some questions that have been given to me by Ms. Parker, and a time or two we kind of ad lib a little bit, and I'll follow up with some of my own questions. And when you feel that you can elaborate more on things that maybe a question hasn't completely provided you the opportunity to do so, please feel free to do that. We're here to promote a narrative give and take, okay? More of a conversation than a courtroom proceeding. So we'll start off with just the basics. How long have you worked for the West Carroll school system?
This is my 3rd year.
So 1920 is your 3rd year.
Yes.
And so last year obviously would have been your 2nd.
Correct.
How long have you worked at the junior senior high school?
This is my 3rd year.
All right, so when you came into the employment with the school district, it was at the junior senior high school. What is your title?
I'm a special ed teacher.
Okay, for what grades?
9th and 10th grade.
9th and 10th grade SPED?
Yes. Well, I'm over their caseload, 9th and 10th graders.
Okay. Does your work include both, and I've been a school lawyer for 25 years, so I'll use probably inappropriate old terms. Do you do inclusion and pull-out?
At the time, yeah, I'm not doing that this year, but yes.
Not doing what?
I'm not doing inclusion this
Okay.
year.
All of yours is, what do you guys say for pull-out now? That's an old term.
We still reference it as pull-out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all of your work now is with the kids that have been pulled out of the classroom for special instruction?
Some of, yes.
Okay, and,
Yes.
and it's still 9th and 10th graders?
This year it's a mixture of 9th to 12th graders.
Okay, last year it was 9th and 10th.
Right. Well, let me clear it up. I'm the case manager for 9th and 10th graders. Okay, so I manage their IEP, their paperwork. When I did inclusion, I would go into all the English classes where students were served in 9th and 12th grade.
Okay, so your inclusion work was in English?
Correct.
Okay. I really want to focus on last year because that's where the issues are involved. So last year you were a case manager for 9th and 10th?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and a case manager, you were not then providing as much instruction as you were just overseeing the IEPs to make sure that they were being implemented properly?
It was balanced.
Okay, so you were doing a little of the management side and then also your own individual instruction,
Yes.
inclusion and pull-out.
Somewhat. Yeah.
Okay. And again, I don't have you on a witness stand. I'm trying to look for a narrative here, so don't feel constrained if I'm asking you questions.
Right, okay. There were times that we would pull the kids out to work with them one-on-one, occasionally, if they needed it.
Who makes the decisions to pull them out?
The gen ed teacher and the special ed teacher, I mean, we make
Okay.
that decision together.
Okay. The IEP doesn't, the IEP gives a little leeway in that regard, right?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay. What's your educational background?
I have a master's degree in education.
Okay. And before you worked for West Carroll, where did you work?
Shelby County Schools.
Bless your heart.
Bless, yes.
How long did you work there?
2 years.
2
I was
years?
in North Memphis.
Shelby County Schools, 2 years?
Yes.
Okay. What schools, by just curiosity?
A.B. Hill Elementary. It's
Okay.
in North Memphis, and then Treadwell Middle School.
Okay. And you were there for 3 years?
2 years.
2 years?
Yes.
And before that, where were you?
Henry County for 10 years.
Okay. And before that?
That's it.
Okay. So, if I got that right, that's a total of 15 years. Okay. Were you, in Henry County, were you a general education or sped teacher? Or?
Sped.
Okay. When did you first get to know Nikayla?
When she was a freshman, she was on my caseload. I would go in her ninth grade inclusion English class. So that's how I got to know her.
Okay. And what was your interaction with her last year?
I was her case manager and inclusion classes. I did do compensatory services with Nikayla.
What does that mean? Did you say compensatory?
Yes. Those are services that are awarded to students. Maybe they're behind on something. I don't really know how it came about, but I did her compensatory services.
Last year, just last year?
Yes, for
Okay.
1 whole year.
What were some of the services that you provided her?
Math and English.
Okay. So how would you get word that you were to provide math and English compensatory services?
That was arranged through the special ed supervisor at the time. She asked me if I was willing to do it, and I did.
Okay. Who was the sped director?
Miss Carey.
Okay.
Dana Carey.
Were those done outside of normal school hours?
Yes.
Okay. When were they typically done? Yep.
If memory serves me correct, Monday, Tuesday.
After school?
Yes, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay. And for how long? An hour or how long?
From 3 to 4:30.
Okay. And Monday and Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in your work with Nikayla last year in the compensatory services, did you feel like she needed those services in math and English?
That's hard to answer. Somewhat, yes. Was she behind? Yeah, she was behind, but
Was she behind more in one subject versus the other?
yes.
Which one?
I would say reading
Okay.
comprehension.
Which is a part of the English curriculum.
Yes.
Okay. So reading comprehension was what she was really, if you were going to say struggling with something, that was her.
Yes.
Was progress made last year with her reading comprehension?
Yes, I felt like it was.
What are some of the things that are done to help in reading comprehension during those compensatory time periods?
Well, I Googled a lot of information and printed off things that we could focus on just reading comprehension for her instructional level, which was, I think, maybe 4th or 5th grade. So I would just print off short passages and then a few questions to go with it.
Very familiar with that. And who had, or how had it been determined that she was at a 4th or 5th grade comprehension level?
Her data indicated that. I also, kind of trial and error, I started her out, I think it's 7th grade, just to see. I believe the program was Easy CBM that I used with her. So I started out at a higher grade to see if I needed to, I didn't think I would need to go up, but where I needed to start it with Nikayla.
And I'm going to get back on track here with some of the questions that Ms. Parker has provided with me. So I guess we've established that of those subjects that she had the most difficulty with, reading comprehension would be number one, correct?
Yes, in my opinion, definitely.
Okay. Her math skills were better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would say so.
Did you have any independent knowledge of other than those two subjects, how she was in terms of her performance as a student?
Are you asking, did I keep up with how she was doing in her other classes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how would you?
I would email her teachers, ask them, because she was on my caseload. I wanted to know how she was doing in all areas.
Was she doing okay in the other subjects?
Give and take. I mean, some she struggled more than others, but she passed everything to my knowledge.
Okay. How would you describe Nikila's personality?
She is very sweet, very sweet. Always willing to help, wants to please people.
Has she ever been, to your knowledge, a discipline problem?
Oh, no.
Does she have good social contact with some other students?
Overall, now she does have contact with other students, she does, but that is the area that she kind of struggles in, social interactions.
Have you ever witnessed any other students making fun of her or any bullying issues?
No.
Picking on her in any way?
Oh, no.
And I think you've already answered this. She's written down the services and instructions you provided Nikila last year. That would be the compensatory services. You were her case manager and her inclusion teacher in English.
Yes.
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and ask me.
Did the data from Ames Webb by the end of the year show that Nikila made progress
In what subject?
in both reading and math?
Can you explain to me what Ames Webb is? I'm asking Ms. I'm
Ames
sorry,
Webb
Ms.
is a
Davis.
program where we benchmark students. We get a good idea of where they are academically in reading and math.
Okay, is it how long does it take to, I mean, is it a 1 hour how is it administered?
You just set the student up for a test. They take the test independently. It doesn't take very long.
Is it done online or?
Yeah, it's an online.
Okay, and Nikila has the ability to do that online, correct?
Certainly, yes.
How long does it take for that test to be taken by the student?
I allowed her as much time as she needed. I did not want to rush her because it would make her nervous somewhat, I guess. So I would allow her as much time as she needed. She would take a while to take tests because she didn't want to be wrong. Maybe 45 minutes for both tests sometimes.
All right, so 45 for math, 45 for English?
Together.
Oh,
45
together?
together,
The
yes.
entire thing in 45 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Not every time. I mean, it varies. I can't even really remember every time she was tested how long it took. I know
You
a lot.
had, I'm sorry. didn't mean
I was
to
just going to
interrupt
say, when students take a test, there are so many different things that go into their testing. So to me, it's just a snapshot of what they know right then. They could do very poorly on a test, Ames Webb, anything. They could do poorly on it, but that doesn't mean that they don't know the information. It means they scored poorly on that bit of information.
Do you recall what her scores were, or her performance? What was indicated from that particular Ames Webb test that she took?
Well, there wasn't just one. There were several.
Got an exhibit. We've got the exhibit.
Okay, which
It's in
exhibit
the
is it?
exhibit. It's in the exhibit.
I think I know which one.
K. Exhibit K.
Let's see if I can get to it. All right. Let's see, there's a date on here of April 29 of 2019. Of course, this is the first time that I've read one of these when I got called in as the hearing officer, but I'll just pass that down to Ms. Davis. I'm sure you're familiar with it, correct?
Yes. Do you have a question?
What was that one that you assisted in having administered?
Where is the date on here? I'm not even sure.
Up at the top is, I think.
Okay, yes, 4/29.
So that would have been toward the end of the 18-19 school term.
Yes, yes.
Why was that given to her at that time? Do you recall?
Every student would, see, every student gets benchmarked 4 times a year. But Nikayla may have gotten Ames Web testing more frequently. And that may have been, I want to say once a month due to the compensatory services. She was tested more frequently than any other student.
Any other student in the school?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying all students are tested for benchmarks 4 times a year?
Yes,
And-
to
and-
my knowledge.
All right. And,
Right? 3, I'm sorry, 3.
Okay. And again, we're not in a courtroom, so
Yeah, I haven't had to
we
think
can-
about this
We can
in a
correct
while,
our
so-
answers and
Can I interject?
yes, ma'am.
Nikayla didn't get that regular monitoring until after February 23rd. When
Of
she
19.
of 2019, when she was placed.
Okay, do you have any recollection or independent knowledge of that it wasn't until February of 19 that Nikayla began to receive more frequent Ames Web testing when she was placed? Do you know what Ms. Parker is talking
I
about
don't even know
being
what she's
placed?
talking about.
Okay.
I
Ms.
don't.
Parker, do you,
I would
what?
like to elaborate.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. From my understanding of what the RTI and the issues that were raised in reference to RTI is that every student is placed in an enrichment RTI before fall benchmarks are taken. So every student has a class or RTI enrichment that they go into. The benchmarks that she's referring to as far as the 3 times a year, the fall, winter, and spring. Fall benchmarks were taken, I guess around October or late October, and based on the information we know now that Nikayla scores where she didn't have to be moved out of the enrichment that she was in. However,
And when you're talking about enrichment, you're talking about in math
like a
and
regular
English?
course. It's just a regular course. The enrichment class that I selected at the time was given options for was a computer apps course.
Okay.
And that was to start out for the year because Nikayla had never ever not been placed in a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. And so the computer apps course was a enrichment course that she was to go into, taught by who taught that class? Mr.
That's
what's his
okay.
name? Another personnel. He wasn't a sped teacher.
Understood.
She was placed in his course until, and from my perspective as the parent, she was placed in that class until she was to get her benchmark assessment done because they had changed the assessment tool.
So am I to understand then that that by February there had been a winter Ames Web probably given, which then gave more data and made more data available to help in any placement, any intervention, or anything that might be needed to assist Nikayla? Is that true? I mean, is it?
Well, here's what I can say.
And please, yes,
Yeah,
that's
just
what
let me-
I don't want to talk. I want to hear
Okay.
from you.
Ms. Parker did not want Nikayla in a special ed RTI. she specifically wanted Nikayla in a tier 1, which is just a regular student, okay? We flip-flop back and forth so much about, do you want her in this RTI, do you want her in that RTI? I've really been confused from time to time. I know that she specifically wanted her in a regular tier 1 RTI, which was Coach Fitch. The computer
Wait a minute,
apps.
Coach.
Yes, he does the
works on
computer
computer
apps.
It's
Okay.
the enrichment
Okay.
that every student is placed in. I couldn't really want.
Okay, and I've let you,
I understand.
I'm being a little
I
lenient
know
here.
it.
But, so Coach Fitch was the computer enrichment course instructor, and that was a tier 1 enrichment class? Okay. So, how does that get us back then to the point where we're now giving Nikayla more frequent Ames Web testing?
I don't really, I can't answer that. I don't really know. There's been so much confusion and so much back and forth about what needs to be done. I've really lost count of the back and forth.
Right.
I mean, I know she was tested. She was tested more frequently when I was doing her compensatory services. But other than that, I don't remember. There's just been too much of this.
Now, compensatory services were given by you to Nikayla throughout the school year? Or
Yes, sir. From
Okay.
August to August.
even in the summer?
No, not in the summer.
Just
No.
during the school
Yeah,
time?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. But those compensatory services were not accelerated in any way during the school term. They just remained a standard Monday and Tuesday 3 to 4:30
Yes.
arrangement.
Yes.
Okay. So from tier 1, I assume then there's a tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that? What is tier 2?
Tier 2 is a little more intensive instruction.
Is that still a general education student?
Yes.
All right. When do we
Yes.
get then? What tier is where we start addressing SPED students who have IEPs?
Students that have IEPs can be in a tier 3. It doesn't always mean they're going to be in a tier 3. It's very fluid. It doesn't mean that they have to stay in a tier 3. I mean, they can go back and forth.
Okay. Is that as high as it gets, tier 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did Nikayla complete her fall benchmarks assessments? Do you know?
Of last year?
This whole proceeding is involved with the 18-19 school year,
Okay.
yes ma'am.
It would say on here, it looks like she did.
Okay, she
I'm
completed her fall benchmark assessments. And you're looking at the Ames Web results from April.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But it says, it has the fall scores,
okay,
the fall, winter, and spring.
great, okay.
Yeah.
So that document indicates that she did complete those fall
Uh-huh.
benchmarks, okay. Are there, and I assume the specific results are on there
Yes.
from the fall testing?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got to go back and read these documents now that you guys are educating me. So I assume that I'm going to be able to read that document and see where those specific results are, correct?
Yes.
Where will they be?
There's a composite score at the top, and then the vocabulary, silent reading fluency, reading comprehension, fluency, right? It says her percentile rank, how she scored in math and reading for fall, winter, and spring.
And in layman's terms, what is it telling you? If you're sitting down with a parent
Mhm.
trying to explain that to a parent, what is it telling you?
It looks like in reading, she did decline from fall to winter, she increased, okay? From winter to spring, she decreased. In math, in fall, she was at, she had a composite score of 30. She went down to 3, and then in spring, she went up to 9. If I'm reading, I don't have my glasses.
From
but I
30
think
to 3,
it's-
isn't that pretty drastic?
Well, and that's why I wanted to make it known that these are just scores, you know. Yes, we use them as a measurement tool, but I could be sitting there and be thinking about what I'm going to do later on and not really be giving a lot of attention to what I'm doing. So yes, they're important, but if Nikayla, let's say she didn't try on one of those tests, and I'm just saying maybe she did, maybe she didn't, then the scores are going to look differently. That's my perspective.
Is the Ames Web the gold standard, or are there other tests out there that can be used, or is this the test that this school district relies on?
Well, this is what we use for benchmark testing, so we kind of use that for progress monitoring.
Did you have an opportunity to talk each time that these benchmark tests were administered and the results were obtained? Did you have a chance to sit down with Ms. Parker and go over them with her?
No, I don't recall. I did send the copy home to her, as I said that I would. I think we have discussed RTI at every single IEP meeting that I've ever been in with her.
Okay.
We've discussed RTI data.
Was there anyone else that who would have been the appropriate person to discuss these benchmark scores with Ms. Parker? Would it have been anyone other than you?
Well, the most knowledgeable person is Ms. Crystal. She was the RTI coordinator last year. So if I had a question about RTI, I would always go to her because she was the most knowledgeable about it. But RTI data has been explained multiple times at every meeting that we've been in.
Right. And I understand that I've had to educate myself on RTI, but I understand that that's a big focus of what the concerns have been. Did you ever have any conversations with Mr. Williams that Ms. Parker wasn't happy with the RTI that was provided for Nikayla?
I don't know that I spoke with him directly, like via email or anything like that. He may have been CC'd on some emails. Like I said, there's been so many emails, so many meetings, I kind of lose focus or forget some things because there's just so much information.
Would you talk to your principal about it?
Yes, I would involve everyone.
Now, who was the principal last year she would have been in senior high, correct?
Well, Ms. Todd is the principal this year. She was the assistant principal last year.
Okay.
So,
Ms. Todd was the assistant principal last year.
Uh-huh.
Who was the principal last year?
Tim Stratton.
Where is he now?
He's another district.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've covered this. I'm going back and forth with my own questions and Ms. Parker's questions. Clearly, you understood that Ms. Parker felt that she was not happy with the RTI that was being given for Nikayla. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I just don't think she understood the assessment itself. I don't think she understood how to interpret things. So I guess it was confusing to her. That was my opinion about the RTI data.
Okay. So in this May 2019 IEP meeting, I think it was May the 21st, were there, I want to get and before I leave here today, I've got to get an understanding of what got off track in that meeting, because clearly something did, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What went on in that meeting and what caused it to get off track?
In my opinion, the meeting went smoothly. up until, the time that we discussed, ESY, extended school year. I explained to Ms. Parker, I did not have the authority to, put any services on Nikala's IEP without talking to someone above me. I couldn't make that determination. I did explain.
As far as extended school services is
Sure.
concerned, because that's cash that has gotta be spent by
Right.
the district, is
Right.
that